The wind howled across the rocky shore like the lament of 1,000 forgotten souls, tearing at Astrid's threadbare cloak as she stood alone on the edge of her former life. Behind her, the village of Fjellheim had already closed its doors, its people turning their backs on the woman they once welcomed as a bride. The autumn sky pressed down heavy and grey, mirroring the weight in her chest. 3 days ago, she had been Astrid Thorfinnsdottir, wife to Bjorn the merchant. Now she was nothing, a ghost, a curse, a woman whose womb had failed to quicken despite 5 winters of marriage. Her husband's words still echoed in her mind, spoken before the assembly with cold finality. A woman who cannot bear sons has no place in my hall. I cast her aside as is my right. The village elders had nodded, their weathered faces impassive. No one had spoken in her defense, not even her own father, who had looked away when she sought his eyes, shame burning across his features. In their world, a barren woman was worse than a burden. She was an omen, a blight that might spread to the livestock and fields. Astrid pulled her cloak tighter against the biting wind that swept up from the fjord. The small stone hut where she'd been ordered to live stood behind her, barely more than 4 walls and a roof. No hearth fire warmed it. No stores of grain or dried fish filled its corners. She had been given 3 days' worth of bread and water, and nothing more. The sea stretched before her, dark and endless, whitecaps dancing across its surface like the teeth of some great beast. As the pale sun began its descent toward the western mountains, Astrid managed to coax a small fire to life inside the hut. The smoke stung her eyes, but the warmth was a blessing. She had wanted children. Gods, how she had wanted them! She had prayed to Freya, made offerings at the sacred grove, drunk every foul-tasting herb tea the village healer prepared. But her courses came each month, regular as the tides, and with them came the growing disappointment in Bjorn's eyes. The wind shifted suddenly, carrying with it a sound that made her freeze. Voices, many voices, rough and male, speaking in the clipped dialect of the north, and beneath them, the unmistakable creak of ships' timbers. Astrid scrambled to the doorway, peering out into the gathering dusk. Her breath caught in her throat. The fjord was full of ships, long ships, sleek and predatory, their dragon-head prows cutting through the water. 5 of them, their striped sails furled, oars working in perfect rhythm as they glided toward the shore. Vikings, raiders from the north. The ships grounded on the beach with a sound like thunder, and men poured over their sides, dozens of them, warriors in leather and mail, axes and swords gleaming in the dying light. Astrid pressed herself against the wall of the hut, hardly daring to breathe. Perhaps they wouldn't notice the small structure. There, a voice shouted, a dwelling. The door burst open, and a massive warrior filled the frame. His bearded face split in a grin that showed several missing teeth. Well, well, what do we have here? Astrid's hand closed around a piece of firewood, a pitiful weapon, but the only one she had. She raised it, her jaw set. Stay back! The warriors found this hilarious. The leader reached for her, and she swung the wood with all her strength, catching him across the forearm. His expression darkened. Little wildcat has claws. Björn, step away. The voice that cut through the tension was not loud, but it carried absolute authority. The warriors froze, then quickly moved aside as another figure ducked through the doorway. The man who entered commanded the space simply by existing in it. He was tall, with broad shoulders that spoke of decades wielding sword and axe. His hair was dark, shot through with silver at the temples, worn long and bound back with leather cords. A thick beard framed a face that might have been carved from the mountains themselves. But it was his eyes that held her, pale grey, like winter ice, sharp and assessing. He wore a long fur cloak over leather armor, and at his hip hung a sword whose pommel was worked in silver and jet. This was no ordinary raider. Who are you? His voice matched his appearance, deep, controlled, with an edge that suggested violence was never far from the surface. She lifted her chin. No one of importance. One dark eyebrow rose slightly. That much is obvious from your dwelling. But you have a name, Astrid. And why does Astrid live alone in an abandoned hut on the edge of nowhere with no stores for winter and no man to protect her? I was cast out from my village. For what crime? She met his eyes. For being barren. A muscle twitched in his jaw. Behind him, she heard one of the warriors mutter something, and another made a warding sign. The tall man continued to study her with unnerving intensity. "What is your name?" she asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Erika Wolfsbane. "And these waters belong to me now." She knew the name. Everyone north of Trondheim knew it. Erika the Wolf, the warlord who had carved out a kingdom from blood and iron, whose the journey north took 5 days of plunging through heavy seas. The warriors largely ignored Astrid, focused on their tasks. She huddled in the stern, wrapped in her cloak, trying to stay out of the way. Erika stood at the prow for hours at a time, looking like something from the old stories, a force of nature made flesh. When he finally came to check on her, the sun was setting in a blaze of copper and gold. "How do you fare?" he asked. "I'm alive," she managed. A hint of amusement touched his stern features. "That's a start. The seas will calm tomorrow. We're entering the inner channels. Where exactly are we going?" "Holugaland. My hall is called Ulfsheimer, Wolf's home. It sits on a peninsula overlooking the fjord, with mountains at its back." The way he spoke of it with quiet pride told her this was more than just a conquest. This was his home, built by his own hand. The hall at Ulfsheimer was larger and grander than anything in Fjellheim. Built of massive timbers and crowned with a turf roof, it dominated the settlement. Smoke rose from vents in the roof, and the sound of voices spilled out into the cold morning air. A woman emerged from the shadows, tall and handsome, perhaps 40 winters, with blonde hair bound in intricate braids. She wore fine wool dyed deep blue, with silver brooches at her shoulders, the dress of a woman of status. "So this is what you brought back from the south," she said. "A half-starved waif in rags." "This is Astrid," Erika said, his tone allowing no argument. "She'll be joining the household." "Astrid, this is Sigrid, who manages the hall. You'll answer to her." Sigrid's eyes narrowed. "As you command, my Jarl. See that she's given proper clothing, a place to sleep and work to do. She's not a guest, but she's not a thrall either." Sigrid circled Astrid slowly. "Well, you're nothing special to look at, and you're thin as a willow branch. But if the wolf wants you here you'll stay. Come with me." The women's quarters were behind a partition of carved wood. A dozen women of various ages were at work, weaving, spinning, preparing food. All conversation stopped when Astrid entered. "This is Astrid," Sigrid announced. "She'll be working with us." An older woman with iron-grey hair spoke up. "Is it true she's barren, cursed?" "It's true she was cast out for being childless," Sigrid said coolly. "Whether that makes her cursed is for the gods to judge, not you, Ragnhild." The women returned to their work, but Astrid could feel their sideways glances. It was Fjellheim all over again. A younger woman approached with kind brown eyes. "I'm Joran. Don't mind them. They're always suspicious of newcomers." Over the following days, Astrid learned the rhythm of life at Ulfsheimer. She woke before dawn to help prepare meals, spent her days carding wool, grinding grain, preserving fish and meat for winter. The work was hard, but it was purposeful. Some of the women warmed to her, Joran especially. Others, like Ragnhild, remained cold, muttering prayers when Astrid passed. Erika she saw rarely. He was occupied with his warriors, planning raids, settling disputes, training. But sometimes she would catch him watching her from across the hall. Once when she stumbled under the weight of a heavy barrel, he appeared at her side, took it from her as if it weighed nothing, and carried it where she needed without a word. 2 weeks after her arrival, everything changed. Astrid was returning from the well at dusk when she heard raised voices. She recognized one, Björn, the warrior who had first found her. Nothing but a curse. "Since the wolf brought her here, the fishing's been poor, and Gunnar's wife lost her baby. It's her. The barren woman poisons everything. You're superstitious as an old woman," another voice scoffed. "Then why did her own people cast her out? She's cursed, and the wolf's too blinded to see it." Astrid turned to flee and nearly collided with Erika himself. He must have heard. His expression revealed nothing. "Come with me," he said quietly. He led her up a rocky path that climbed the hillside above the hall until they reached a flat outcropping overlooking the fjord. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of amber and crimson. "Tell me what you're thinking," Erika said gently. "I'm thinking that I shouldn't have come. That maybe they're right, they're not right. How can you know?" He turned to face her fully. "Because I've seen real curses, Astrid. You're none of those things. You're simply a woman who cannot bear children, which is no more a curse than being born left-handed. People fear what they don't understand, and they need someone to blame when things go wrong." He paused. "I brought you here because I saw something in you that day. Strength, dignity, a refusal to surrender even when you had every right to. That's worth more to me than a dozen women who can bear children but lack courage." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Why do you care?" For a long moment he didn't answer. When he did, his voice was rough. "Because I know what it's like to be judged for something beyond your control. I was born the bast. Winter descended on Holigaland like a great white fist, sealing the fjords with ice and burying the world in snow. The great hall became the center of existence, meals shared around the massive hearth, stories told on long, dark evenings. Astrid settled into the rhythm more easily than she'd expected. She learned to card wool the way Sigrid demanded, to grind grain fine enough to meet Ragnhild's standards, to preserve fish in traditional methods. Her hands grew calloused but capable. Joran became her closest companion. They worked side by side, and in quiet hours, Joran shared the gossip and politics of the hall. "The Jarl has been different since you came," Joran observed one evening as they wove by lamplight. "Different how?" "Less harsh. There's something softer in his eyes sometimes, when he thinks no one is watching. Usually when he's looking at you." Heat flooded Astrid's face. "He's just ensuring his investment hasn't died." Joran's smile was knowing. "If you say so," but Astrid couldn't deny that something had changed between her and Erika. He sought her out more frequently, bringing her a warmer cloak, sitting beside her during meals, asking her opinion on matters that seemed far above her station. The conversations grew longer, more personal. "You didn't fail," Erika told her one night when the hall was quiet. They sat near the dying fire. "Your husband failed. He married you for your father's connections and expected you to be a broodmare. When you couldn't fulfill that narrow purpose, he discarded you rather than seeing your other worth. That's his weakness, not yours. The world doesn't see it that way. The world is often wrong." He stood and held out his hand. "Come, I want to show you something." He led her outside. The cold hit like a blow, but the sky took her breath away. The aurora danced overhead, great curtains of green and blue light rippling across the stars. "I come here when I need to remember what I'm fighting for," Erika said quietly. "All the blood, all the violence, it's for this. For moments of beauty in a harsh world. It's beautiful." "Yes." But when she glanced at him, he was looking at her, not the sky. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. A recognition, a possibility. Astrid's heart hammered, and she thought he might kiss her. The moment shattered as shouts erupted from the hall. They ran back together, and Astrid's blood turned to ice. The hall was in chaos. Warriors were arming themselves, and in the center stood a man Astrid didn't recognize. Tall, blonde, with a jagged scar running from brow to jaw. He was flanked by a dozen armed men. "Styrbjörn," Erika growled, the name dripping with venom. "You have some nerve walking into my hall armed." The scarred man smiled cruelly. "I come under flag of truce, Wolf, or have you forgotten the old traditions?" "I forget nothing. Especially not that you tried to take Ulfsheimer 3 years ago and lost half your men for your trouble. Ancient history. I come with a proposition, one that could benefit us both." Erika's hand remained on his sword hilt. "Speak." "There's a large settlement to the east, grown fat on trade and poorly defended. Too large for either of us to take alone, but together we could split the plunder. And why would I trust you not to put a knife in my back?" "Because I need you and you need me. Unless, of course, you've gone soft. I hear you took in some cursed outcast." Maybe the wolf is getting old, trading his teeth for sentiment. The temperature in the hall seemed to drop. Erica took a step forward, and every warrior knew they were witnessing something dangerous. You will not speak of her again. State your business, accept my answer, and leave. Or we can settle this the old way, right here. Your choice. Styrbjörn raised his hands in mock surrender. No offense intended, Wolf. I simply want to know if you're still the man who took this hall, or if you've been domesticated. Before Erica could respond, Astrid found herself stepping forward. Every eye turned to her. Forgive my ignorance, she said, addressing Styrbjörn, but I'm new to these northern ways. Is it customary for a Jarl to enter another's hall, insult his people, and then ask for favors? In my village we called that foolishness. A shocked silence fell. Then laughter erupted from Erica's warriors. Styrbjörn's face darkened. The cursed woman has a tongue. How charming. Enough. Erica's voice cut through the laughter. Astrid speaks truth. You come seeking alliance, but offer only insults. My answer is no. Take your men and leave. Styrbjörn's eyes narrowed. Very well, Wolf. But remember this moment when winter proves harder than expected. You could have been rich. Instead, you chose to protect your pet. He strode from the hall, his warriors following. The moment they were gone, Erica turned to Astrid. That was either very brave or very foolish, he said. Probably both. I'm sorry, no, don't apologize. You defended my honor when I was too angry to defend it myself. But Astrid, you've made an enemy. Styrbjörn doesn't forget slights. Let him remember. I'm tired of being silent. You're not a burden. His grip on her shoulders was emphatic. You never were. But everything just got more complicated. Styrbjörn will be back, and when he comes, it won't be under flag of truce. The next weeks proved Erica right. Scouts reported that Styrbjörn had been gathering allies, spreading word that the wolf had grown weak. Some of Erica's own men began to grumble. They say you've bewitched him, Joran reported quietly. That's why he turned down the raid. That evening, Astrid sought out Erica in his private chambers. I need to leave, she said without preamble. He looked up. Explain, your men are losing faith. They think I've made you weak. If I go, the problem goes away. Erica set down what he'd been holding and moved until he was directly in front of her. And where would you go? Back to Fjellheim? Into the forest to freeze? South to another village that will reject you? That's not the point. It's exactly the point. You have nowhere to go. But even if you did, I wouldn't let you leave. Her breath caught. Why not? Because somewhere between finding you in that hut and watching you face down Styrbjörn, I started to care what happens to you. Because you've become important to me in ways I don't fully understand. Because when I imagine this hall without you, everything feels colder, emptier. He paused. Because I think I'm falling in love with you, and I don't know what to do about it. Astrid stared at him. At this fierce warlord who had just made himself utterly vulnerable. Erica, you don't have to say anything. I know what I am. A warrior, a killer, a man twice your age with more scars than virtues. But I won't let you sacrifice yourself because my men are fools. Whatever comes, we face it together. Astrid's hand came up, touching his bearded cheek. He froze. You're wrong about something, she whispered. You say you don't know what to do about falling in love with me, but I know what I want to do about falling in love with you. She rose on her toes and kissed him. For a heartbeat, he was utterly still. Then his arms came around her and he was kissing her back with a hunger that stole her breath. It was fire and need and connection, two wounded souls finding solace. When they finally broke apart, Erica rested his forehead against hers. I can't offer you an easy life. There will always be enemies, always threats. I don't want easy. I want real. I want to be with someone who sees my worth, then stay. Not as a servant, but as mine. Let me protect you, honor you, give you a place at my side. Yes, she breathed. Yes. Outside, the wind howled like a warning, and in distant halls, Styrbjörn sharpened his blades and made his plans. Spring came grudgingly to Hålogaland, the ice breaking with sounds like thunder. Astrid woke beside Eirika in the pale dawn light, his arm heavy across her waist. These stolen moments of peace had become precious. Soon he would become the wolf again, don the armor that leadership required. Their relationship had not remained secret. Within days, the entire settlement knew that Astrid sat at his side during meals, that he consulted her on matters large and small. Reactions were mixed. Some seemed happy, others muttered darkly about curses. Björn had been the most vocal in his disapproval, speaking openly about how a great Jarl needed a wife who could bear heirs. Eirika had struck him for it, a clear message to anyone else considering similar commentary. But the real threat wasn't internal dissent. It was Styrbjörn, the scarred Jarl, had been gathering forces. He'd allied himself with two other minor Jarls, both eager to bring down the wolf. Together, they commanded nearly 200 warriors, more than Eirika could field. "We can't win a direct battle," Eirika admitted during a war council. His most trusted warriors gathered around the table. Astrid sat beside him. "We're outnumbered 2-1. Then we retreat," said Ivar, a scarred warrior. "Take what we can carry and establish ourselves elsewhere." "No." Erika's voice was absolute. "I built Ulfsheimer with blood and iron. I won't abandon it." "Then what do you propose?" asked Gunnar, the youngest captain. Astrid had been studying the map, tracing the lines showing Styrbjörn's likely approach. An idea had been forming, audacious and dangerous. "What if we don't fight them at all?" she said quietly. All eyes turned to her. Some curious, some skeptical. "Explain," Eirika said. She moved to the map. "Styrbjörn expects you to either meet him in battle or flee. What if you do neither? The approach to Ulfsheimer is through this narrow pass. It's the only way to bring a large force here. What if we collapsed it, triggered a rock slide that blocks the pass entirely? Styrbjörn's army would be forced to come by sea. By sea would take weeks longer," Ivar said thoughtfully, "and leave them vulnerable during landing." "It's desperate," Gunnar objected. "If we fail, we're trapped." "We're already trapped," Astrid countered. "And Eirika, you know these mountains better than Styrbjörn does. You know where the stone is unstable." Eirika studied the map with new eyes. Finally, he nodded. "It could work. The pass has an overhang near the summit. I've always thought it looked precarious. With enough force applied in the right places." He looked at his men. "We'd need every able body. We'd need to work fast. Styrbjörn could be here within 2 weeks. And if he arrives before we're ready," Björn demanded, "then we fight with the advantage of terrain." "But I don't intend to give him that chance." The men dispersed to their tasks, and Astrid found herself alone with Eirika. He pulled her close. "That was brilliant," he murmured. "And terrifying." "I know. But it's the only way I could see to protect what we've built." "We're not dying today," he said fiercely. "We're going to collapse that pass, send Styrbjörn running, and then I'm going to marry you properly. And anyone who doesn't like it can challenge me." "Understood." She laughed despite her tears. "Understood." The next 2 weeks were constant labor. Every person who could work did so, hauling massive timbers to the pass, positioning them against weak points, packing spaces with stones and brush. It was backbreaking work. 3 men were injured. 1 woman nearly died when a rope snapped. But slowly, the trap took shape. Astrid worked alongside the others, her hands blistering and bleeding. Even Ragnhild, who'd never hidden her disapproval, worked beside her one day. And when Astrid nearly collapsed, the older woman caught her. "I still think you're cursed," Ragnhild said bluntly. "But you're brave. I'll give you that." On the 13th day, scouts came racing back. Styrbjörn's army had been sighted, less than a day's march away. 300 men, with siege equipment and supply trains. They were confident. Eirika gathered everyone in the hall that night. He stood on the platform, backlit by the hearth fire. "Tomorrow, Styrbjörn arrives, expecting to find us cowering or prepared to throw our lives away. He will find neither. Instead, he'll discover that we've turned our home into a fortress, that every advantage belongs to us, and that the wolf still has teeth." A cheer rose, but Eirika raised his hand. "I won't lie. What we're attempting is dangerous. Some of us may die, but if we succeed, we'll send a message that echoes across the north. Ulfsheimer cannot be taken. The wolf cannot be broken. He descended and moved through the crowd until he stood before Astrid. Then, to everyone's shock, he knelt. "Astrid," he said, loud enough for all to hear, "before these witnesses, I claim you as my wife, my partner, my equal. I swear by Thor and Odin that I will protect you, honor you, and stand beside you until death takes me. Will you accept this oath?" The hall was utterly silent. By making it here now, before battle, Erika was telling his people that Astrid was not a weakness. She was his chosen partner. "I accept your oath, Erika Wolfsbane. And I swear by Freya and Frigg that I will stand beside you, support your rule, and honor your name until death takes me." He stood, and they sealed the vow with a kiss as the hall erupted in cheers. When they broke apart, Erika turned to his people. "Now rest. Tomorrow we show Styrbjörn what happens when you threaten the wolf's family." The dawn came cold and clear. Erika's warriors took their positions, some at the pass base to delay any vanguard, others high on the slopes with the trigger mechanisms. Astrid stood with Erika on a ridge, her heart hammering as Styrbjörn's army came into view. They were impressive, rank upon rank of armed men, moving with confidence. Styrbjörn rode at the front, radiating triumph. The vanguard entered the pass, and Erika waited until nearly a third of the force was committed. Then he raised his hand. Now the signal fires blazed. Warriors put their weight to the great levers. The sound started as a crack, then a rumble, then a roar. Astrid watched in awe as the mountainside came apart, thousands of tons of rock cascading down into the pass like a waterfall of stone. The screams were audible even over the din. Dust rose in a massive cloud. When it cleared, the pass was gone, replaced by a massive jumble of boulders that would take months to clear. Styrbjörn's army was cut in half. The vanguard trapped on the Ulfsheimer side. The main force stranded with no way forward. Erika's warriors fell on the trapped vanguard like wolves on wounded prey. The battle was short. Outnumbered and disoriented, the vanguard surrendered within the hour. Astrid could see Styrbjörn on the far side, his face twisted with rage as he realized he'd been outmaneuvered. Erika stood tall on the ridge and raised his sword in unmistakable defiance. The message was clear. The wolf still reigns. Styrbjörn stared for a long moment, then wheeled his horse and rode away, his army following in defeated columns. That night, the celebration was jubilant. Mead flowed freely, songs were sung. Astrid found herself the subject of toasts and praise. This woman